Am I audible?
Yes, good evening, Sandeep sir. Am I audible to you?
Yeah. Thank you. Let me check the presentation once.
Yes, sir.
So presentation is visible.
Yes, sir. It is visible now.
Changing.
Yes.
Okay.
So, members, we are going to continue yesterday's session now. I'll hand over the session without wasting much time to Sandeep sir.
Well, 1 minute time still now. So
Yes,
let us wait for another
we
1
can wait
minute
for one minute,
so
then we
that
can start. Right.
yeah. So thank you everybody for joining 24 hours after. Well, I'm so sorry that I could not join. In fact, I joined yesterday, but unable to talk to you because that time I was traveling from Kolkata to Bhubaneswar by train, and every after 5-10 minutes the connection was disconnected. So that is why I didn't want to give you much trouble. If I started presentation and after that continuously disturb, then training program would not be that much interesting for you as it generally. But that is why actually I requested all of you, if you kindly assembled a day after, although today also a huge inspection is going on, but I asked my colleagues to give me 1 hour time. By that time, I came back to room and I'm here to share my views regarding the new IVS 2025, uh, that standard 103. Well, first of all, I must congratulate all of you. You might be the first group of persons who are getting training on IVS 2025, which has now becomes active. The activation has been done from yesterday, from 31st January. Globally, IVS 25 is in operation. That means from after 31st January, any valuer who are following international valuation standards for any new valuation report, they have to follow the International Valuation Standard 2025. Well, for that, your own assessors and registered valuers foundation, that means AARVF, we have arranged this training program for all our friends so that you will be a step ahead of your other professional colleagues in using the international valuation standard. Yesterday, I joined the training, and wonderfully it was explained by Thomas. I believe that you have also enjoyed that program. Now today, the same IVS 103, I will try to explain you through uh, an example. Through an example, because IVS never cites any example because it's a principle based standard, and principally the council has taken a decision from its inception that in IVS we would not provide any illustration. So these training programs, we believe that is a necessity for the valuers all over the world to understand the IVS and its application. The main matter of following IVS is its application. To understand application of IVS, how you will apply the different chapters, the different sections of IVS in your valuation assignment as well as in preparation of your valuation report. That is why, although in each IVS training, we have tried to involve the international best trainer on valuation and IVS from different countries. You know, you have already seen the people from UK, the people from Australia, and next week, and then you will be having the people from Saudi Arabia, people from the best valuers from Israel, who are also there in the tangible asset board of the International Valuation Council, who are responsible for development of the standard. So here my object is to give some illustrations how you can apply the International Valuation Standard in your day-to-day practice as well as in your day-to-day valuation report preparation. Without wasting any more time, I am sharing my screen with you with the presentation on IVS 103. So I believe now my screen is visible to you all.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, just a minute. Let me adjust a few more things. It is changing. Fine. So this is IVS 103, that is International Valuation Standard 103. And this 103 International Valuation Standard is on valuation approaches. Well, previously, this was known as valuation approaches and methods, and now it has been changed the name to valuation approaches only. The introduction of these IVS 103 valuation approaches is very important to understand the entire standard of 103. Yesterday, our international speaker, our international trainer, he did not use the word to word what has been written in the IVS 103, but very lucidly he used different approaches, different methods, how it would be used following the international valuation standard. He explained it to all of us. Today, what I would do, I would try to use not the appendix, but word to word use of the international valuation standard 103 for you. And I would like to and I would try to explain as much as possible for the interest, for the understanding of our valuation friends of this Indian subcontinent. You must be knowing that this is a program in which not only you, the valuers from India, are joining, but valuers from Bangladesh, valuers from Sri Lanka, valuers from Nepal are also joining to understand the international valuation standard. Well, in the introductory part, at the very beginning, before also the introduction, the IVS 103 states that IVS 103 valuation approaches requires the valuer to consider and select the most relevant and appropriate valuation approaches for the valuation of the asset and or liability based on its intended use or intended uses. The words which are very relevant here are the most relevant and appropriate valuation approaches. So the relevancy of the valuation approach is the keywords in selection of the approaches that will be used in any person's valuation report and valuation findings. And second one is very important. Which one is the intended use? For what purpose? Initially, in fact, before 2025, the valuation standard used the word purpose, but from 2025, the valuation standard changes the word purpose to intended use, because the financial valuers and the business valuers, they said that there is no such terminology in IFRS or in accounting standards as purpose, whereas intended use would be the best term which are used in accounting standards and international financial reporting standard. So to have a parity with all the other standards, IVS also finally changed the word purpose, and now IVS using the word intended use. And we know very well that value varies from purpose to purpose, and therefore valuation approaches also or may vary from intended use to another intended use. IVS 103.10.1, what it said, consideration must be given to the relevant and appropriate valuation approaches. One or more valuation approaches may be used. So consideration must be given to the relevant and appropriate valuation approaches. One or more valuation approaches may be used in order to arrive at the value in accordance with the basis of value. So the valuer is not shall, it's not must, but it may. That valuer may use one approach or may use one or more approaches while arriving at the value in accordance with the basis of value. So if we take a basis of value as market value, the valuer may use two different approaches. What is that? The valuer may use market approach, income approach, or he can use only market approach, only income approach. If it is the market rent, basis is market rent, yes, the most relevant approach, what we generally do, the valuers, is the income approach. But even then, to support that income approach, valuer may use cost approach also or market approach also. There is no change in the first two lines, but the third line, what you have seen right now, the three approaches described and defined below are the main approaches in valuation. They are all based on the economic principles of price equilibrium, anticipation of benefits, or substitution. But these lines are not there in 2025. It was there in 2022, up to 2022 International Valuation Standard. So now these lines have been deleted. And in spite of that, the main, what we have said, the main approach, now we have used the word principal valuation approaches. So what are there? The three approaches that has been described in the International Valuation Standards IVS 03 may not be the only approaches, but it says that they are the principal valuation approaches. And the valuers, that means there may be other approaches which may be used for valuation of properties, but the below approaches will be treated as the principal valuation approaches. What are those? The market approach, income approach, and cost approach. 10.2 said the selection of the approach should seek to maximize the use of observable inputs as appropriate. See, from these addition of international valuation standards, the standard setters change the word inputs by additionally adding another word observable input with it. Because now the valuation reports, now the valuers have to give not only to the weightage to the inputs, but to the observable inputs, the inputs which can be observed. The sources can be found out. Sources can be checked. These are called observable inputs. So the selection approach should seek to maximize the use of observable inputs as appropriate. 10.3 says, each of these valuation approaches includes different detailed method of applications. But in the standards, in the body of the standards IVS 103, IVS does not includes the detailed methods of valuation which were there in the last edition. Now they have been shifted to appendix A10 to A30. .04, the goal in selecting, this is very important while you select a valuation approach which is applicable for your valuation. The goal in selecting valuation approaches and methods for an asset and or liability is to find the most appropriate method under the particular circumstances of the valuation. No single method is suitable in every possible situation. So you cannot apply, you cannot say that cost approach is applicable to every land and building, every building valuation. Can we say that? IVS also said that it is not possible. Or cost approach, he has also accepted every single method, every single approach is not accepted or application in all the cases. In the selection process, the valuer should consider at a minimum. See, very important. First one, the appropriate basis of value. That means base of value plays a key role in determination of the approach, and premise or premises of value determined by the terms and intended use of valuation for which the valuation is supposed to do, and the terms and condition agreed between the valuer and the client will determine ultimately what shall be the appropriate basis and what shall be the premise of value. And on the basis of that, valuer will determine what approach or approaches he or she will accept. B, the respective strengths and weaknesses of the possible valuation approaches and valuation methods, right? Suppose a rented property, which may be valued by the application of application of income approach or application of market approach, because there are evidences in favor of sale or transaction of tenant occupied properties, but there may not be any evidence in the market regarding lease or rent. If that is the case, can you apply directly only the income approach? The answer is no, because there is no observable input for the income approach, but there are observable input for market approach. So here in this case, the application of income approach would be much weaker than the application of the market approach, because the evidence in support of income approach would be much less and not observable. Therefore, the strength of depending on the strength of the market approach and the weakness of the income approach, the valuer ultimately may select for the purpose of for the intended use of this valuation, although the basis is market trend, the market approach. C, the appropriateness of each method in view of the nature of the asset or assets and the liabilities, and the valuation approaches or valuation methods used by participants in the relevant market. So, what is the nature of the asset? That will also play a big role. Nature of asset or nature of liability, a big role in selection of the method and approach, and the methods under that approach, which approach or method valuer will finally stick to. D, the availability of reliable information needed to apply the methods, right? Methods. So applicability of reliable information. That means the evidence that are available in the market. How much reliable are those? Depending on that, the valuer has to finally decide which method he or she would finally apply. Price information from an active market. Mind this, the IVS, the IVSC, the boards, they have not only used the word market, price information from a market, but they have used the word active market. That means the market in which transaction is still on. So price information from an active market is also another ingredient to find out which approach the valuer would finally accept. And finally, in 10.05, the valuer is not required to use more than one method for the valuation of an asset or liability particularly when the valuer has a high degree of confidence in the accuracy and reliability of a single method, given the facts and circumstances of the valuation. So if the valuer has got all the ingredients of DCF, discounted cash flow method, if valuer has got all the ingredients of discounted cash flow method for valuation when he has been assigned with the job of valuation of a vacant land in a metropolitan cities. That means he has got the evidences in support of the apartments to be made and sell out. He has got the evidences in support of the cost of construction. He has got evidence in support of all other necessary data, observable inputs for application of the discounted cash flow method. Then the valuer can strongly go for using only one method of valuation, discounted cash flow under the income approach. There shall not be any need to go for any other approaches like market approach or cost approach or any other method under the discounted cash flow method. 10.06, the valuer should consider the use of multiple approaches and methods. The previous one said, if the valuer is so confident, the valuer is very confident that one method is sufficient, the IVS allowed him now to go for one method. But generally, they said the valuer should, it is not must. You must, the valuer has to understand the motive of IVSC for use of three different terms: must, should, and may. When it is must, valuer doesn't have any alternative. When it is should, that IVSC wants that valuer would do this, but it is not absolutely mandatory. And the word, when IVSC uses the word may, that means the IVSC has released the opinion, released the entire matter on the valuer only. It is up to the valuer which he or she will do as per his willingness or as per his instinct or as per his experience. So here it says the valuer should consider the use of multiple approaches. That is, IVSC expected the valuer should consider the use of multiple approaches and methods. More than one valuation approach or valuation method should be considered and may be used to arrive at an indication of value, particularly when there are insufficient factual or observable inputs for a single method to produce a reliable conclusion. IVS revolves around a few things like transparency to get the confidence of the end users. The valuer should report the value in such a way that it will create a confidence in the mind of the client that it is perfect. To do that perfect job, when there is no observable inputs, when there is no reliable or insufficient, when there is insufficient factual or observable inputs. In that case, if a valuer stick to a single method or a single process, then the question might arrive in the mind of the end user: is the valuer correct? The question might come to the end user: why the valuer has not used other methods when there is no observable input which I can check? So in that case, the confidence of the client may not be that much. So to bring back the confidence of the client, if the valuer uses all the three methods and finally discarded one after another and stick to a single one to give its conclusion with reason, then the client will be fully confident on the report of the valuer. And that is the motto of the IVSC, to spread this motto through the IVS, that finally it is transparency, finally it is the confidence of the end users in using a valuation report. Where more than one valuation approach and valuation method is used, or even multiple methods within a single approach, the value based on those multiple approaches and or method should be reasonable, and the process of analyzing and reconciling the different values into a single conclusion without averaging should be described by the valuer in the report. So basically, before adhering to the international valuation standards, you know very well that the Indian valuers, the valuers in this subcontinent, we are prone to make averaging. Even the government documents, even for taxation purpose or for secured lending, the valuers used to average. If two different values come, even unfortunately enough, going against the principle of the International Valuation Standard, although the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Board of India and most of its RVOs accepted IVS as the standard of valuation practice of their members. But in the IBC itself, in Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code itself, the IBBI assorted to averaging of valuation. That is the most unfortunate part. I have explained it to the officers and chairman of the IBBI in more than one symposium and seminar, that when at one end IBBI is recommending to follow IVS, and at the other end the IBC is telling that valuation, the value given by two different valuers in an insolvency process, the average of these two should be accepted. But here it is clearly written as per 103, as per IVS 103 10.07, without averaging, no valuation conclusion should be reached which are coming through using more than one valuation approaches and valuation methods. You discard one after another the value conclusion arriving at by the application of different approaches, and finally stick to a value conclusion by application of an single approach and a single method, or they have mentioned that they are casting averaging, but not weighted averaging. Give weightage in values, find measured by the application of more than one methods, provide different weights, and then come to a value conclusion. How it will be done? Again, it says, you see, 8.08 said, while the standard includes discussion on certain valuation methods within the cost, market, and income approaches, it does not provide a comprehensive list of all possible valuation methods. See, go back to 10.01. What it said? That principal valuation methods are the following three. Similarly, 10.08 also said, while the standard includes discussion on some valuation methods within the cost, market, and income approaches, it does not provide a comprehensive list of all possible valuation methods that may be appropriate. You understand what they said? And a burning example is already there in the IVS itself. Here they have given examples in valuation of by the methods that has been described does not contain the method named as profit method. And you all know that in case of when we do the valuation for hotel, motel, petrol pump, guest houses, what do? We apply profit method. But that method is not there in the appendix of IVS 103. That method has been discussed in a separate IVS under 300, 300, 320, 310, yes, that is valuation of development properties. There we use a different method, which is profit method, which is not there in the index here under 103. So it is clear here that whatever methods has been described under 103 appendix are not comprehensive. It is the end of the world of methods. There may be some other methods. There may be some other methods which may be applicable in different statutes, different jurisdictions, which are not covered by the IVS. So even you use those methods which are not covered by IVS, but which is required by a specific jurisdiction, by a specific statute, then also your valuation report will be IVS compliant. So it says compliance with IVS may require the valuer to use a method not defined or mentioned in the IVS. Even then, that your report will be considered as IVS compliant. 10.09, when different valuation approaches and or valuation methods result in widely divergent indications of value. It's a very important line and very important IVS section. 10.09, when different valuation approaches or valuation methods result in widely divergent indication of value, the valuer should perform procedures to understand why the valuation indication differs. So it is not, as it is generally not appropriate to simply weight two or more significantly divergent indications of value. So why this 10.09 is very important? It indicates two different points. Number one, here IVS indicates that weight is allowed, weighted average, because it has already stated that it is generally not appropriate to simply weight two or more significantly divergent indications of value. That means weighting of two or more indications of value is allowed, When it is not allowed, when the two different values find by the application of two different methods or approaches are so different, there is a huge gap between these two. In that case, application of weighted average is not allowed. Weighing is not allowed. In that case, what it says, in such cases, the valuer should reconsider the guidance in 103 valuation approaches, para 10.04. That means how you have to choose your approaches and methods. What are the basic things that you have to consider? Go back to the basics. That means again check whether you are applying the right approach or method as per the base, as per the premise of value, as per the intended use or not. And then again come back to determine which one of the valuation approaches and or valuation methods provides a better or more reliable indication of value. So just blindly do not make an average, do not make an weighted averaging of your figures and come to a conclusion. So that means it's a very important one. If the difference, and here in this case, again, there is a similarity between the between the direction of the IBC. What IBC said, that two different, the valuation value given by two different valuers differs by more than 15%, then a third valuer is to be engaged by the resolution professional. But even after that, if the third value again differs from these two by more than 15%, what will happen? It is not clear. It is not mentioned. Forget about clearly. So it remains as an open-ended case. If that happens, then what happened? Generally, RP used to insist on the valuers, you please keep your value as near as possible to each other, which is against ethics. The valuer should not know what the other value given by the other value. Then there is a breach of ethics. It should not be, but it is happening. This is happening every time in case of valuation for insolvency. So I believe that you have understood the weightage, the importance of the 103 10.09. It has given an indication that weighing is allowed as per IVS, and at the same time it gives a direction that if the value found by two different methods or approaches have a bigger gap, in that case you go back again to the basics in the 10.04 and check why this big gap is coming, why these methods is actually to be discarded, but you have used, stick to the single method, you may. 10.10, the valuer should maximize the use of relevant observable market information in all three approaches. Again, always in these IVSC giving maximum importance on the observable market information. Again, here also it has been stated that in all three approaches, valuers should try to gather all the observable market informations, observable inputs for the valuation approaches. Regardless of the source of the inputs and assumptions used in evaluation, the valuer must perform appropriate analysis to evaluate those inputs and assumptions and their appropriateness for the intended use of valuation. So intended use of valuation, observable data, these are the main substance to finally decide which approach and which method the valuer would apply for come to a valuation conclusion. 10.11, the valuer should exercise professional judgment. Finally, we are coming to that. In determining the valuation approaches, valuation methods and procedures. So, with all the other points, along with all other points, that is intended use, observable inputs, other evidences, it is also the valuer's professional judgment. Now, professional judgment means how the professional judgment comes. Professional judgment comes actually for these. That means these there are so many inputs, out of which is an observable input. There are what is the intended use of valuation that will finally give the professional judgment of the valuer to find out the accurate valuation approach and method. If in the valuer's professional judgment, the limitations placed on the valuer's selection of valuation approaches, valuation methods, and procedures for the valuation are overly restrictive, then this may not result in an IVS compliant valuation. So what we say, what the contract is with the client. The client is demanding so many things. The intended use as per the client is something different, which is not matching with the IVS. The client is insisting on non-observable data to do the valuation report. So finally, it is the professional judgment of the valuer. Yes, I will deliver the report, but because of this disparity with the directions of IVS 103 for the selection of approach, finally, I have decided that this report will be a valuation report, but it would not be in compliance with IVS. That has to be clearly written there. And it should be intimated to the client through your scope of work. 10.12, no one approach or method is applicable in all circumstances, with price information from an active market generally considered to be the strongest in evidence of value. Some bases of value may prohibit the valuer from making subjective adjustment to price information from an active market. Price information from an inactive market may still be good evidence of value, but subjective adjustments may be needed. So these are the finer points while deciding a valuation approach or valuation method. When we are coming down, 10.12 is a finer points in selection. 10.13, a valuation may be limited or restricted where the valuer is not able to employ the valuation approaches, valuation methods, and procedures that a reasonable and informed third party would perform. And it is reasonable to expect that the effect of the limitation or restriction on the estimate of value could be significant. So it also declares that the valuation may be a limited or restricted valuation. Now, if that is so, then what it means that valuation, which is a restricted or limited valuation, in which valuer is unable to employ in a justified way valuation approaches, it will remain as a valuation report, but it will not in compliance with IVS. So that's all about the first portion. That is what IVS 103 has stated in its body, except appendix, although the appendix also an inseparable part of the standard. It is a part of the standard, and valuer not only stick to the 103, but they also stick to appendix also. Let us go to the practical example I have told you in the previous while discussing IVS 101 scope of work. I have given you that example from just a minute. Administrative building फर्स्ट फ्लोर में जाऊंगा, वैल्यूअर है, राइट साइड से आएगा, उधर आके So now we are coming into that example, which is an example of I have given that example not as a financial reporting. This example is for financial reporting, for the intended use of financial reporting of some real estate, right? So that scope of work I have given. Now we are coming here, how we have represented it in our valuation report, how we have finally chosen the valuation approaches and valuation methods. So let's see what it starts with. This one, what is said, it's an introduction. What it said, IVS 103 and its appendix provide us the different approaches and methods of valuation. Consideration has been given to the relevant and appropriate valuation approaches. The three approaches described and defined below are the main approaches generally used in valuation. Paragraph 61, because what I said, this is prepared for the intended use of financial reporting. Now, when you prepare a report for financial reporting in India, the report not only is to be compliant with the international valuation standard, the report has to be in compliance with the Indian accounting standard also. So here we have to comply with the 103 as well as we have to comply with the Ind AS 113. Paragraph 61, which states that an entity shall use valuation techniques that are appropriate in the circumstances and for which sufficient data, in case of IVS, we say observable inputs, sufficient data are available to measure fair value. Maximizing the use of relevant observable inputs and minimizing and for which sufficient data are available to measure fair value, maximizing the use of relevant observable inputs and minimizing the use of unobservable inputs. So you see, before IVS modified itself to observable input terminology, Ind AS started using these observable and unobservable inputs before it, because I said that these observable input terminology came to IVS from the financial valuers and business valuers. Next part, the valuation approaches. The principal valuation approaches. What are those? We are writing in our report. The principal valuation approaches are market approach, income approach, and cost approach. Because these chapters now you have to include in your valuation report. There will be a separate chapter in your report that is selection, that is approaches and methods. Then comes selection of approach. Valuer has to be very transparent how he or she has selected this approach. We have taken it from IVS only and copied it here. The goal in selecting valuation approaches and methods for an asset is to find the most appropriate method under the particular circumstances. No one method is suitable in every possible situation. The selection of the approach should seek to maximize the use of observable inputs as appropriate as per IVS 103 10.02. The IVS demands that the selection process should consider at a minimum, just a minute. Sorry. So what are the minimum that is already given in your IVS? The appropriate basis of value and premises of value determined by the terms and intended use of the valuation. the respective strengths and weakness of the possible valuation approaches and valuation methods, the appropriateness of each method in view of the nature of the asset on the liabilities, and the valuation approaches or valuation methods used by participants in the relevant market, the availability of reliable information needed to apply in the methods, and price information from an active matrix. These are all just copied from the IVS 103 and put it here, because you and me and the other valuers know what is there in IVS. Your client might not be knowing. So to create the transparency for the knowledge of your client, you need to copy and paste it here. Now we are coming how we are selecting in light of this. In our case, we have considered the following points while selecting the best approach or approaches.
Sir, you are mute.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Oh, so let me go back to the previous slide. So now you know what are the points that a valuer has to consider, and that we make clear why we have put it here, so that you, me, and the people, valuers like us, can understand that it is there in the IVS. But your client might not be, or certainly not knowing why the valuer is considering these points. So it is required that you copy the requirement of the IVS and put it here for understanding of your client. And then we are coming to why. In our case, we have considered the following points while selecting the best approaches of valuation. What are those points? Now we are starting the points, our points. Number one, the basis of value chosen is fair value basis, right? So first thing is that valuer has to find out what is the basis of value for this valuation process. Here it is fair value. Number two, according to Ind AS 113 paragraph 31, because I told you previously that this report is prepared for the purpose of, for the intended use of financial reporting. So we have to consider both IVS as well as Ind AS. The relevant Ind AS is Ind AS 113, right? Which paragraph 31. So according to Ind AS 113 paragraph 31, the highest and best use of a non-financial asset establishes the valuation premise used to measure the fair value of the asset. Again, IVS 102 Appendix A 90.01 said, the highest and best use is the use from a participant's perspective that would produce the highest value of an asset. Moreover, according to IVS as well as Ind AS, the highest and best use must be physically possible, financially feasible, legally allowed, and result in the highest value. Third point we have considered.
Sir, again you are mute.
The third point, what we have considered? Third point we have considered. The first point is the basis of value we have considered for selection of this approach. Second point, we have considered what is written in the Ind AS 113 as well as IVS regarding highest and best use. Third point, we have considered according to the terms of assignment as well as from our physical inspection of the property under question, together with the availability of evidence, we will find that the premise of value in this case should be current or existing use. But why not highest and best use? According to IVS 102 Appendix A 90.01, here we have given the here we have given the definition here, what has been stated. Current use or existing use is the current way of an asset or liability or group of assets and or liabilities is used. And it also said that the current use may be, but is not necessarily also the highest and the best use. In this case, to my opinion, the current use also the highest and best use. So the 2 points, 2 and 3, clarified and explained, and finally we came to the point that it is the current and existing use which is the highest and best use also for this property, this asset. Fourth point we have considered, the entire property under question except the already assigned portion of land and building is under the full possession of the lessee. Fifth point that we have considered, all the lease deeds or deed of assignments have the year of commencement of lease either 1998 or 1999. Sixth point we considered, the leases are of very long 99 years period in nature. Seventh, the remaining term period of lease is further 74 to 75 years. That means very high. On successful and faithful completion of these leases, lessee shall be entitled to have a renewal of the lease for a like period of 99 years and thereafter to successive like period. Ninth point, if the lessee duly and faithfully observes and fulfill the terms and conditions and covenants of the lease could be interpreted as a perpetual lease, because for renewal of lease in no case lessor can deny. Number 10, as the lessee has got the right to mortgage the land to financial institution, and the financial institution on the other hand has got the right to take appropriate action to realize the payment to lessee, the lessee's right is indirectly transferable. Number 11, by deed number such and such, lessee already assigned a part of its leasehold land to another party. This establishes the fact that the property interest is assignable or transferable. Number 12, transaction evidence of land is available. 13, comparable data on fair value of lands for different use group of the purpose of stamp duty is also available from the official website of Government of West Bengal. Number 14, a fair value measurement of a non-financial asset takes into account a market participant's ability to generate economic benefits by using the asset in its highest and best use or by selling it to another market participant that would use the asset in its highest and best use. Therefore, see, now considering all these points that it is a perpetual lease, the lessee has got all right to assign the lease or transfer the lease. So with all such step-by-step derivation, we have finally come here as, according to IVS 10440.01, what has been written as a cost approach. The cost approach provides an indication of value using the economic principle that a buyer will pay no more for an asset than the cost to obtain an asset of equal utility, whether by purchase or by construction, unless undue time, inconvenience, risk, or other factors are involved. The approach provides an indication of value by calculating the current replacement or reproduction cost of an asset and making deductions for relevant forms of observance. According to paragraph B8 of Ind AS 113, the cost approach reflects the amount that would be required currently to replace the service capacity of an asset, often referred to as a current replacement cost. And accordingly, after we discussed on income approach, both from the viewpoint of IVS as well as from the viewpoint of Ind AS 113, and market approach from the viewpoint of IVS 103.20.01, your appendix, market approach, and paragraph B5 of Ind AS 113. So all the viewpoints on cost, market, and income approach has been discussed. And finally, it says land parcel cannot be created or constructed. So fair value measurement of land by the application of cost approach is discarded. So you see how step by step we have come to the final conclusion here. Conclusions: number one, application of cost approach is discarded. Why it is discarded? That is explained. Then we come, as we are to determine the fair value of leasehold interest of the non-financial asset, which is not yet subleased to anybody. We are to first calculate the capital value of both the building and land, to reach the rental value of land and building, and then to apply income approach to finally estimate the fair value. Now, for calculation of capital value of land under question, comparable transactions are available in the locality, that is already explained in the point. So considering all the above mentioned criteria of our question property and the applicability of different approaches as guided by international valuation standards as well as Ind AS 113, to my opinion, so it is my professional opinion, professional judgment of the valuer, what has been stated in 103 10.12, the professional financial judgment. In my opinion, the capital value of the land component of the non-financial asset under question, capital value of land component, shall be estimated by the application of market approach. So land component of the capital value will be calculated by the application of market approach as transaction evidences are available. Capital value of building component of the non-financial asset under question shall be calculated by cost approach. So by that, we can estimate the capital value of the land and building. But to estimate the fair value of the entire non-financial asset, we have to apply income approach. So you see how step by step we explained every matter to come to a reasonable and justified conclusion, which valuation approach or approaches we will apply to come to calculate or to estimate the fair value. In case of methods, a separate chapters has been given, in which we have given we have quoted one judgment of CWT in the Calcutta High Court, in which it says how the methods will be determined. And then selection of method, we have given the points how under this, which method will be selected under which approach, that the entire property under question except already assigned portion of the land and building is under the full possession of the lessee. All the above lease deeds from 98 to 99, period of lease from 99 years from the date of lease. Estimation of cost of construction of the structure and infrastructure is possible from reliable sources. Reasonable number of comparables on land transaction is available. No lease transaction of residential land under Haldia Revenue PS in last 5 years is available. The 33 years long government bond yield as on March is available. Therefore, I opine that the value found by applying comparable transaction method under market approach should be taken as the capital value of land under question, and replacement cost method under cost approach may be adopted for measurement of capital value of the buildings and infrastructure. Finally, income capitalization method under income approach shall be adopted to estimate the fair value of the non-financial asset under question as on the date of valuation. So you see, in an IVS compliant valuation report, how you will build your chapter on approach and methods. So that's the end of and then I discuss the methodology, what is written as the comparable transaction methods, replacement cost methods, and income capitalization method. These things have been directly taken from the IVS and given it here to give a transparency and valuation in the mind of the intended client, intended user, as well as of your client. So that's all. Now it is open for question and answer. Although the time is over, I will take some questions and then I will stop this. So it is open now. You can raise your hand or you can unmute yourself and can ask the question. Yes, Mr. Ramesh, please.
Good morning,
unmute
sir.
yourself.
Very nice presentation, and compared to this thing, international person, I'm more comfortable with your language and understanding. First of all, thank you for that. My question is, you have given some base value and premises value. Can you give some small example? What is base value, premise value?
There is no question of example. What is the basis of value is already explained in your IVS 102. IVS 102 elaborately explain the different bases of value, that is market value, market rent, investment value, synergistic value, all are your liquidation value, all are your bases of value. First, this is the foundation of your valuation. It may be, there may be a contract between your client and yourself, what value your client is looking for, or you can advise your client that you want to know the mean profit of the property. So for that calculation of mean profit, the base of the value should be market rent. So first, the base of the value will be finalized between the client and the valuer, and then premise of value. Premise of value means on what basis the base of value is created. Premise of value, whether it is a highest and best use. What highest and best use? Premise. When a vacant land is there, you are supposed to do the valuation of the market value. So it's a market value base. And then what is the premise of value? Whether it is an existing use, current use, or a highest and best use. Now, when there is a vacant land, an existing use is vacant land only. Use is what? Now it is used as a grazing land for the goats. So would you take it in a metropolitan city? The grazing land is the existing land for making your valuation? No. So what would be the highest and best use that you have to? Then you have to accept that highest and best use will be the premise of value here for the base of market value. And then you might have to do any approaches, market approach. It might be a combination of market cost. It might be development method. So by that, your valuation would be done, right? So this is a small example. Fine. Thank you so much. Anybody else? Please raise your hand first. No raise hand is there.
Sir, I have raised hand. Ashika here.
Oh, please.
Yes, sir. Good evening,
yes,
sir.
Ashika. Yeah, good evening.
Yeah. So my question is that this is if suppose SEBI in the alternate investment fund valuation, the IPVC guidelines have already given some guidelines saying this is the basis you'll value it. So now this doesn't fall under that market approach, cost approach, or the income. So how do I state that in the report? Is it that I have to follow the market, income, and cost approach? And so I'm just confused on that, sir.
Yes, in the IVS is very clear on that. What is that said? The three principal valuation approaches are the following: cost, market, and income. There may be other approaches, right? So it is very clear at the 10.20 itself, IVS 10 said the principal valuation approaches are these three. And IVS at the very beginning in the IVS 100, it has stated that if there is a confrontation between the IVS and any jurisdiction or statute, then that jurisdiction and statute will prevail over IVS. Even then your valuation report will be accepted as a IVS compliant report. If the SEBI's understanding, SEBI's direction is different from that what is directed by IVS, you have to follow SEBI's direction for that valuation. Even then your valuation will be treated as an IVS compliant valuation. So don't worry, go ahead as per the SEBI's direction. because that is a statute in your case, and you follow that what has been given there. If the method is different, if the method or the approach is not there in the IVS, no problem. Follow that guideline, right? There is no chance of any confusion when you are doing any valuation under any statute or under any jurisdiction, different jurisdiction. There is no prohibition from IVS that you cannot do that. First, you have to follow that jurisdiction or statute only. But try to follow all other things as per the IVS. Then your report will be absolutely IVS compliant. Not to worry. Okay.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Okay. Anybody else? Nobody else. Right. Thank you very much. Rahul, please conclude.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you,
Very
sir.
nicely you have
Thank you for
explained.
such
Thank
a-
you so much.
Just a minute. Okay. Mr. Arun Borse, tell me.
No, sir. I am just expressing my thanks. You have explained very nicely.
Thank you so much. Rahul, please. But one point I would like to mention to everybody that you see, I also used to learn how the international speakers are explaining, because what I used to explain it from my experience in Indian perspective, right? But you need to know what is the global perspective, because this is international valuation standard. And I believe that you will
Sir,
be able to
yesterday I have asked the same question, whether two approaches can be followed. So now today I got the answer. Very good. Thank you, sir.
But Dr. Moina Ghoshal, শুয়ে শুয়ে প্রশ্ন করলে কিন্তু এরকম শুয়ে শুয়ে উত্তর হবে।
Sorry, sir.
Sorry, I have explained this thing in Bengali because I don't want to embarrass him. That is why I told the answer to him in Bengali. Fine. What I say that I also, while participating in international, when these international speakers, they are very, very big shots. Like your, Ben Elder, Thomas, our IVSC Tangible Asset Board chairman, they are very big shot. So I also, by participating in their sessions, I try to learn something, because these are global perspective. This is international valuation standard. I hope that many of you will be having your international client, and for that their accent you have to understand. Otherwise you cannot do the job, right? So it is intentionally we have involved the international big speakers, so that you can come in touch with them, you can understand what is the global perspective. And finally, I personally wants to explain you in the Indian perspective and according to our market. So that's all. The aim of AARVF to give you a comprehensive idea, explanation from all points of view of the international valuation standard. Thank you very much for participating. Rahul, please.
Thank you, Sandeep, sir. Thank you. You're taking questions of each and every one by one, even in regional languages. It is a good eye opener for every valuers. And thank you all the valuers, especially who had taken out time today for the extended session, which was scheduled for yesterday. And we will again catch you next Friday, 3 to 5 p.m. And
Next Saturday, 3 p.m.
an exciting thing again. Everyone.
Next
Thank
Friday,
you, Sandeep,
next
sir, once
Friday,
again.
3 to 5.
Next Friday, 3 to 5 p.m. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much.
See you next.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.